At a Q&A in Houston last weekend, Seth Rollins was asked about wrestling Kenny Omega. He was asked a question about Kenny Omega, and he caused a great big stir when he said that when Kenny is done working in the minor leagues, he can come to WWE. He can come to WWE. He can make the most money in WWE. They could have the biggest matches together at WrestleMania. And people went in on Seth Rollins for these comments. Some people lost their minds. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to stand up for Seth Rollins on this one. I don't think he said anything wrong. He was just getting back at Omega, tongue-in-cheek, I thought, for the comments that Kenny made all those weeks ago about everybody in NXT, or the big names in NXT, all being developmental, and how they would all be in dark matches in AEW, watching him wrestle in main events. Adam Cole would be in dark matches watching Kenny Omega wrestle main events. And the same for Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa and Matt Riddle and all those guys. And I didn't take those comments seriously either, because I saw what Omega was trying to do. He's just trying to stir shit up. I don't believe for a second that he buys into what he said in that interview. All of this was designed to just get people talking and to try to play up the narrative that there's some kind of a war. Some people say there is no war. Some people say there is a war. They're just trying to play it up. They're trying to get something going. Jim Ross was very upset by what Seth Rollins had to say. And on his podcast, he said it doesn't do any favors for the business. Labeling any wrestling promotion as minor league like that is not, in his view, a classy thing to say. He claims to have spoken with 2 Hall of Famers, off the record, that were embarrassed by what Seth Rollins said. One of them even told him that he thinks maybe Seth is breaking under the pressure because he's been getting a lot of criticism. Now, what did I say on this podcast 4 months ago? Back in June. It's probably the clip, when it ended up on YouTube, it's probably the clip that got me blocked. I said Rollins is cracking under the pressure of being the champion at a time when the brand is not drawing. Not that SmackDown is doing much better, but Rollins has hardly been some kind of great champion. At that time, it was less about him getting all of the criticism, and he was more, he was starting to respond to just the general criticism that people had about the company. He was, as a company man, he was very offended. He felt he had to stick up for WWE. But I said at the time, he's taking it personally, and it's getting to him, which is why he made some of the dumb comments that he made at that time about Moxley and some other things that he said. Absolutely, I believe that this guy is coming apart at the seams. And he does, and as JR said, he does live a charmed life. You know, I'm sure he gets paid very well. He runs his own little coffee shop business on the side. He's got a training facility. He's got a lot of business interests. He's getting married to Becky Lynch. He's the champion on Monday Night Raw. He's got a lot going for him. But he is coming apart at the seams because the criticism is just occupying so much space up in his brain. And it's no different than criticism that John Cena got. It's no different than criticism that Roman Reigns got. And boy, you know, when I look at those guys, even his boy Roman, and I got to give the guy credit, Roman was always a consummate professional whenever he would respond to this stuff, or actually, he wouldn't. How many times did Roman Reigns go on Twitter and have some kind of meltdown on social media? Never. Because if it did bother him, he kept it to himself. He said, listen, I can only do what I can do. I'm being booked by the company. This is how I'm being portrayed on television. I go out, I do my job, I have my fans. That's all I can do. All I can do is go out and try to be a great spokesman for the company. And he didn't let it get to him. And I have a lot of respect for Roman Reigns for that, because that guy took a lot of shit, and still does, but not to the degree that he was, 2 or 3 years ago. He took a lot of crap, some of which was undeserved. But he didn't let it get to him. Not publicly. This guy is coming apart at the seams. So then JR continued. He said Rollins is in a great spot. He's blessed. And maybe someday he'll be as over as his girlfriend. He's a solid guy, and it makes him look bad, and he feels badly for him. That's what Jim Ross said. I would think that if Seth Rollins was upset about any of that, and if he is, he's not showing it. He's actually been kind of tongue-in-cheek, and I think actually this he's been playing off in a good way. He's been playing it off for laughs in certain comments. But if Rollins was genuinely upset about anything that JR would have said there, I guarantee you it ain't the part about Becky being more over than him, which is true, by the way. That's just the fact. It's not that, though. It's probably the part where JR said he felt sorry for him. Because there's nothing more insulting and hurtful to someone's pride, especially somebody probably in the position that he's in, than saying you feel sorry for them. Nobody wants people feeling sorry for them. Now, I think JR went overboard about the minor league stuff because, again, Rollins was just giving Kenny Omega a receipt for what he said about the NXT crew. And I would bet anything that if you go back over the last 25 years, especially back when Jim Ross was heading talent relations in WWE and they were in a war head-to-head with WCW and there was a lot of bad blood there on both sides, a lot of my team against their team kind of stuff, I can almost guarantee you'll be able to find at least some examples of JR saying things in interviews or whatever about the other company or people who worked there that was just as bad as Rollins calling AEW minor league, or even worse, or even more offensive. So I think this was blown way out of proportion. And by the way, Chris Jericho has said worse about WWE since leaving the company and signing with AEW, and he's their champion. I don't hear JR saying much about Chris Jericho when he talks shit about WWE or NXT. Or he's on television talking about bad creative for Jake Hager or whatever. Boy, JR is awfully silent on that. So please, spare me the outrage.